Hey, and welcome back to my channel. It's Ashley here, and if you are new, hey girl, hey. So I'm super excited about today's video because I'm going to be doing a furniture makeover. I'm going to be making over this little cutie here. I don't even honestly remember where I got this from because I've had it in my garage for a very long time. And one of my missions is to flip all of the pieces in my garage, guys, because I have a lot of pieces in there. So this is the first one, and you guys know what I always do when I flip my pieces, and that is clean them out. So that is what I'm doing. I am cleaning out this piece. I also always make sure to clean out like inside in the drawer areas and stuff like that, because you find the most randomest things and it's just nasty and dirty. So I just clean out all my pieces. So after I did that, the next thing I did was I started to work on the top of this because I am going to be painting the top, but there were a lot of like little imperfections and stuff on the top and also some like sticky things on the top that I needed to get rid of. So what I did was I took some Goo Gone and I just sprayed it on those areas that needed to be removed, and then I took a scraper tool and scraped those off. So after I removed the thicker gunk that was on here, there were some deep scratches and stuff like that on the top of this dresser that I needed to get rid of since I am just going to be painting the top. So I just took my sander and I started to sand that down, and to do that I used a 220 grit to sand this down, and I gave it some medium-sized pressure to kind of just start to remove those out a little bit. So I just took that 220 and I started to sand it nice and smooth. So after I was done sanding, I just wiped down my top, just making sure I'm getting all of like the dust and stuff off of there from sanding so that I'll be able to paint my top. So after I was done with the top, I just went around the rest of the piece, and wherever there was another like imperfection, I just simply took my sander and I sanded those nice and smooth, again using that 220 grit. Alright, so after I was done sanding, again, I just came back with my cloth and I wiped down the piece. And then I started to work on the drawers. So I removed the hardware because I'm not going to be using this hardware, but I do like to keep the hardware from certain pieces because sometimes I might use them in another piece. But I'm not going to be using these for these, so I just simply just took them off using my drill and just forcefully taking them off because for some odd reason they were stuck on the drawers. Alright, so then I started to work on the drawer. So this drawer in particular, the front is a thin layer of veneer, and then the sides are wood, and the rest of it is just like a pressed wood with a laminate printing, which a laminate printing is the look of wood, but it's just a printed look. So on the sides and on the back, they had that same look to them, so I already knew what I had to do. So if you get drawers like this, just make sure you look underneath the bottom on the sides and also the back so you can kind of see what you're working with. But I'm going to show you how you can kind of figure out if you'll be able to stain this, if that is what you choose to do or not. So what I did was I sanded this down. So I purposely sand this down all the way, especially when you are sanding this down. The edges you have to be very careful with because like everything is delicate, but the edges are very delicate. So I used a 220 grit and I just sanded this down, and as you can see that particle board underneath the little very thin layer. Like I don't even know how they did this, but a very thin layer. So if you don't want to do that, you could just use a stitchy strip or whatever stripper you want to use. I would prefer a stitchy strip, especially with something like this, because it's not as like potent, I guess you would say, as the other ones, and you will add that on to remove the finish that you don't want. So as you can see, that is what it did look like. You can see the little particle board underneath it. So you could do a 220 or lower and try to just sand it down a little bit, or you could just go ahead and use your stitcher strip. So with the stitcher strip, I did one layer, I put it on, let it sit for the little 30 minutes that it says, and then pull it off. Had to do it twice. So I then came back in, put another little layer on it, removed that layer, and then I was good to go. So that is something safe that you can always do, is that you can just go ahead and use a little area that you have on your piece and just like either sand it or stain it a little bit to see if, oh, I will be able to sand this, you know? I mean, not sand it, but stain it a little bit. But if not, you can just always go ahead and paint it. But if not, you can do these two methods to realize that, oh, I can stain this a little bit, stain it a different color. And you can go ahead and do that. And as you can see, like, some of it was coming off already, so it's just really easy for it to come off. But these are just different ways that you could do that to utilize to see if you are able to stain something, if that is what your idea in your head is for you to do. Alright, so after I stripped all of the finish off, now I'm just going to take this after wash to remove the excess of the citrus strip. So I like to use this stuff because it really just takes it off really easily and you don't have to worry about all the messiness. So I'm just adding it on here, scrubbing it off using this little scrub pad that I get from the Dollar Tree. And then after that, I'm just going to take some continuous spray, just a little mist of water, and wipe this down, because you really do not want to soak this drawer front or anything with like a whole bunch of water, because it will expand because it is pressed wood. So after I was done stripping those two drawers, now I'm going to work on the body of the piece. So I'm just taking a microfiber cloth and I am wiping this down to get it prepped for me painting it. And then I took some of the Zinsser 123, the stain blocking primer, and I'm going to add that on top first. So I am just using the spray and I'm going to spray it on. So I did this all over the piece, and then I also did it to the top of one of the drawers, well, that one drawer that I'll be painting. And I sprayed this stain blocking primer on there so I can make sure that I have a very good adhesion onto this piece. And then after I did that, I am just going to come in with my sander and I'm going to sand this down. And I used both my palm sander, and then I also came in and just used like a piece of sandpaper to get in those areas that I couldn't reach with my orbital sander. Then after I was finished with that, I just came back again with another microfiber cloth and I wiped everything down. So next, I'm now going to take this PPG paint that I have. The color is Honeygram and it is so cute. And I am going to transform it using the BB Frosh Paint Transformer Powder. So I've seen this before. I've always wanted to try it out. So I got this little sample size and I am going to mix up my paint. So this paint transformer is basically, you can transform any color latex or acrylic paints, and it gives you the features and the benefits of like a chalk paint or a mineral paint, which is really cool. So you don't have to like really do like the plaster of Paris thing, or using baking powder or baking soda, or using the calcium carbonate. You can just use this and transform your paints. Very, very easy. So I followed the instructions that was on the little bottle and I started to mix up everything. So first you want to mix up your transformer with the water. So it's literally like the same process as if you were using the other stuff. And then after you get it like nice and creamy, then you're going to want to add your paint. So I added my paint in there and then I mixed everything up again. And then I let this sit for a little while and it was ready for me to paint. So I really, really like this. It really works very well and I'm so glad that I finally got to try this out. So I'll leave a link to their website down below so you can check it out yourself. But it's a really nice product and I love to help and support small businesses. So I will be buying more of this because I do need more. But to start, getting a little sample size is nice to just try it out yourself. So I started to paint this on to my piece. I'm also going to be using my zebra brush. I love zebra brushes. They're my favorite, and the perks of this is now that you can get them at Home Depot, but I love to use a zebra brush. So I use this to paint my whole body of this piece and the top of the drawer. And again, I'll have links to both of these down below so you can check them out for the zebra brush and both the BB Frosh paint transformer. Alright, so another thing that I want to mention that I've mentioned in a previous video is if you're not using like a zebra brush or a nice brush that you know is going to like help with eliminating some of the brush strokes, you can literally just brush on your paint just like this and then go ahead and take a roll brush and just roll it on top so you'll have a nice smooth finish. The paint brushes do help with it, but honestly it depends on the brand of paint and the type of paint that you're using to where it would eliminate some of those brush strokes. But again, honestly, you could just take whatever brush you're using, brush it on, and then go ahead and take your roller brush and roll that on top to smooth out the paint. So after I finished the body, I started to work on the inner parts of the drawer. So literally it was so nasty in here. I just sprayed some of my Goo Gone on there, left it on for a little bit, and then started to scrape everything off with my scraper tool. Even after I did that, it still looked a mess. And I knew that I was not going to be able to actually stain the bottom part of this because it's literally laminate. It's printed on look of wood, so I wasn't going to be able to do that. Very slick finish, so I decided to paint the drawers. But before I did that, I did spray them a little bit with some of my primer so that my paint would adhere. After I did that, I started to paint this the same color, that honeygram color of the body of this piece, and I did that for both of the bottom drawers. So after that, I did just decide to stain the top drawer sides. So I'm using the color Early American, and I did that for both the sides and the back of this. And then I also took that same color and I stained the front drawers that same exact color. Of course, it took the stain a little bit differently, so it was a little bit darker. I could have matched it up with the top, you know, mixing different stains and things like that to get the exact same color, but I just decided to keep them a two-tone different color, again, to kind of make this dresser nice and fun. So speaking of fun, the next thing I did was I started to blend the top drawer. So when I blend stuff, I like to actually add the drawers in so like I can see, like it's like in front of my face instead of kind of doing it up on the floor, if that makes sense. So anyways, I'm just taking that same honeygram color and I'm coming in on the tops, adding it there. And then I came in and added some of my sheepskin. You guys know I use that color all the time, but I added that to the center. And then I just started to blend everything together, actually bringing the honeygram color from the bottom, so I had it on the bottom and the top, and then kind of just blending it that way. There's so many different ways that you can blend, guys, but this is one way that you could do it. So you could just start from the top and then bring your lighter color in and bring it in the middle, and then come in with that same color at the bottom. You can do it from the top and then all the way down at the bottom. It's just literally so many different ways that you can blend. Just have fun with it. Don't get frustrated at all. Make sure you have a spray bottle on hand. That is something that I like to use all the time. A continuous mister is very nice to use. I couldn't find mine, so I did use this little spray, which was fine because it wasn't like a stream. It was literally like spraying it nicely. So honestly, you could just get these too from Walmart. They're like 97 cents. But if not, you can also get you a mister, which is really nice because it just is like a nice continuous mist. So you don't have those big water droplets when you actually start to spray your piece. But again, when you're blending, just take your time, have fun. And there's so many different ways to blend. Literally, there's no right or wrong way. Just have fun. As long as it looks good in the end, that's all that matters. But honestly, I was just trying to get the blending effect because I already knew that I was going to be adding a stencil on top of this. So it was good, but it wasn't perfect. But it was enough to where when I put my stencil on top of it, you can tell that there's like a two-tone effect going on. So now I'm gonna start doing the stencil part. So this stencil came from Michael's, and now I'm just gonna take this Easy Tack and I'm going to spray that on there and leave it for a little bit so that it can get nice and tacky. I cannot talk today, guys. So after that, I just added that on to my drawer. So this just makes sure that the stencil is going to stay in place and it doesn't move. I'm not the best at stenciling, but this is something that actually helps me. And then also getting one of those big, large stencil brushes that you can find anywhere, but I got mine from Michael's. So I added this on here, and then I used my painter's tape as well, and I taped those sides. And then after I did that, I just started to add that same honeygram color on top of it. One nice thing that you should definitely make sure you do is once you dip it in your paint, make sure you have like a paper towel or something on the side so you can just dab it on that paper towel to remove as much paint as you can, because if not, you will have a little bit of bleed through, which I got a little bit, but it was okay. So you're just gonna go ahead and just start to tap, 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 of course, your whole stencil. And again, using the larger round stencil brushes really helps a lot. So after I did that centerpiece, the next thing that I did was I moved my stencil. So I did that centerpiece, then I moved it to the right side. I used the stencil there too with the stencil brush. And then I moved it to the left side and I did this stencil there too, and then I removed everything and then my stencil was there and it looked so good and I love how this turned out. Another thing that you can use is a roll brush. If you don't have a stencil brush, you could just roll the pattern on there as well and then just remove it, just making sure that it's nice and dry, and then you'll be good to go. So after I was done with that, now I'm going to start to work on the bottom part. So this removable wallpaper is actually from Target. I'll have it linked down below. So I added that to the bottom and cut out what I needed. And then now I'm just going to be removing this velvet that they had in the drawer, which was weird, but I mean, I've put together some drawers that have velvet in it. So I'm just using a X-Acto knife to help me out, and I'm just like cutting it and then removing that. And then after I did that, I just carefully started to add this removable wallpaper, just as you would like contact paper or anything like that. Started from the back. I didn't have my little scrape tool to kind of scrape it all off, but if you have a credit card or something like that, I'm using like this piece of wood to kind of smooth everything out to make sure I don't have any bubbles. But whatever you have on hand, just do it. So that's what I did. Made sure that it was nice and smooth on there, and then I again came back in with my X-Acto knife and I started to remove all of the excess. And so again, this, like I said, is a really fun dresser. So we have some of this cool removable wallpaper on the top. The other two dressers are painted, and then we have that nice stencil effect on the top, and then the bottom two drawers are stained. Next, I just took a 400 grit sandpaper and I am just using a little sanding block and I am sanding my top very nice and smooth. Then I'm going to come in with a microfiber cloth and I'm just going to kind of remove any of the little paint dust and stuff that comes on there. And I did this for the whole entire piece. And then I also added some of the easy peasy wax on top of that, and then I changed my mind and I honestly then added just like a satin finish to the top, and then that's what I did for that. And then after that, I just used some of the Howard's wood conditioner and I added that to the fronts of the bottom two drawers, and it just conditions the wood. I did about 3 coats of that. This is my first time using this product, so I will have it linked down below, but it did give these drawers a nice clean look and finish. And then after that, of course, I added my hardware back on to the drawers, and these pulls came from Hobby Lobby and they are super cute. And that's it. That is all I did for this little cutie here. I love how it turned out. It's very fun with the stencil, with the blend, and then the wood on the bottom. The drawer pulls are my absolute favorite. I love these and I will definitely be using them again. It's my first time actually finding them at Hobby Lobby, which is super weird because I always go there for hardware. Another thing that's fun, of course, is the paper that the removable wallpaper that I added in the inside, and then just the different 2 tones of the wood and stuff, just to change it up a little bit. This already has a home, so I'm super excited about that because I told you guys I've been doing an operation get everything out of my garage. So this piece is gone, and now I'm moving on to the next one. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, as always, make sure you give it a big thumbs up. If you aren't subscribed to my channel, make sure you click on that subscribe button and you hit that notification bell so you'll always be up to date with my latest tutorials, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!